The only constant in life is change, and I agree 100%. So on today's show, we'll talk about making wise decisions when life throws you the unexpected curveball. Let's jump in.
It's time for the My Retirement Clarity Podcast with Lee Perkins, financial planner and president of J.L. Perkins Wealth Management. Get ready for a good dose of inspiration, simplicity, implementation, and of course, clarity on how to successfully prepare for retirement and grow and preserve your wealth. Here's Ben George with Lee Perkins.
Glad to have you back inside My Retirement Clarity alongside Lee Perkins of our J.L. Perkins Wealth Management there in Macon. I am Ben George. And Lee, I think we had a great show today because we kind of touched on it in the intro, but a lot of what you do is, right, we think of investing and you help us save money and get to retirement, but you touch so many aspects of your clients' lives that because no matter what's happening, whether you're changing jobs, which we'll talk about today, or going through divorce, which you work with people on, and the other stuff we talk about, you have a part of that because it touches their financial life too.
Yeah, really. I tell people when they're in the midst of one of these major events that, this is when probably I provide my most value to clients, because things change and life changes and life comes at you fast. And sometimes it's very, very helpful to have just somebody that's sort of that sounding board to help give you some good, solid advice. And it's not always just about managing the money. I know we sort of get painted into a box of, hey, this is my money guy, but it's also, just making wise decisions when things are thrown at you in life, because life is not fair and it can be complicated. I could tell you some stories, Ben, of some of the things that my clients have gone through, and you would go, holy cow, can't do that, of course. But man, it's important that you're making wise decisions when things happen.
I think you make a great point about value, because while, you obviously help with investment strategies and making sure people are saving the correct way, a lot of that is on the easier side of financial planning, right? It's when these big life events happen where you have some real critical decisions to make.
No question, because when the stock market is going up and everything is fine, it's easy, because the investment part really is the easiest thing. It's the behavioral part that is tough. One of the toughest parts of my job. This year, 2022, has not been a good year in the market, and I've worked harder this year than I have in a long time, because there's a lot of financial coaching that goes on, trying to help people, provide them with some context and some clarity, and help them make the right decisions and not hit the panic button, because when things are going crazy, people just have a tendency to make poor decisions, and then they compound that with another bad decision. All of a sudden, you've made some real, you've set yourself back financially. And so that's what I'm doing my best to try to do, is make sure that we keep folks in the good decision side of life.
So we're going to take you through that today on this episode of My Retirement Clarity. Remember, if you have questions, you can always reach out to Lee directly. Just go to talkwithlee.com. You can schedule a meeting right there through that website. Again, talkwithlee.com. All right. So again, we're talking major life events today. Anytime that these events come up, we got 5 of them today. They're all big, very important. They impact your life significantly, but we want to make sure that you're making smart financial decisions when you encounter some of these events. We're going to talk through what Lee's looking at, how he helps clients, and what you should be thinking about during each one of these. So Lee, let's lead off with a job change. I think it felt like a pretty good number of people that have shifted careers or changed jobs over the last couple of years since COVID hit. So it kind of is a timely time to be talking about this. But no matter what the reason for your job change, what should you be thinking about here?
Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of folks who've changed jobs over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And I think I've said it before on the podcast. One of the good things to come out of COVID was it allowed folks to really sort of look around, look for other opportunities outside of what they've always done. Of course, some folks chose to change jobs. They also chose to change careers in some instances. And so that's probably to me a positive thing. And recently, Ben, we've had a lot of folks out there who have stepped away from their old job and they're now doing something else. Maybe not really because they wanted to. We work with a lot of Geico employees, and Geico's going through some big changes right now, and people have had to make a few difficult decisions really quickly. Some of these folks have opted to leave on their own, and other people are being forced out. So, I think a lot of these folks have just made the decision to go ahead and retire for good, but others are going to look for another job. So when you do find yourself at a new job or, seeking a new job, once you land that job, one of the first things you need to do is go ahead and enroll in the company retirement plan as soon as you possibly can. Some employers may make you wait for a little while to do this. Sometimes there's a probationary period before you're eligible to do that. But as soon as you can, go ahead and enroll and put as much money as you can in there, but at least get the match. Because, if you go to work for somebody and they give you a free match and you don't contribute and you don't get the match, that's 100% return that you're giving up. And I can't give you that. No advisor can promise you 100% return, but if your company will match 5%, man, you better put in 5%. And that's just something to do as soon as possible. But the other part of the conversation becomes what to do with the 401k from your old job. Now you can leave it there. You can leave it there as long as you want. I generally wouldn't recommend that. I tell people, when you leave a job, your money needs to leave that job too. So you can certainly do a couple things. You've got the option to move that old 401k to your new one at your new place. I probably wouldn't recommend this option. I don't recommend this very often, unless you're very, very young. But if you're older, it probably makes a little more sense for you to roll that 401k into an IRA, that, you control. You just got more flexibility, more investment options than you do with a 401k. Your access to the IRA is most likely going to be a little bit greater too. So yeah, a job change at a new place, you got some decisions to make. So make sure that you weigh the pros and cons of everything and do what's best for you.
All right, let's go to divorce. One of the more difficult times, right? Somebody will experience. And what's critical here is I think a lot of people in this situation, Lee, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here because I know you've worked with a number of people going through this. I just feel like you're so emotional, everything's so difficult that you just want it to be over with, that you often probably don't think through a lot of the financial decisions that will greatly impact your future and where you go from there.
Yeah, and I'm not a divorce attorney, Ben, so I'm certainly not going to speak on who deserves what versus, what somebody actually got or what they didn't get, because that can be all over the map. But divorces can be difficult for a lot of different reasons, but it can also present some financial challenges for both people, in addition to all the other things that are going on. So for me, I think it's a great time for people to readdress a budget, make sure you know where your money is going, and make adjustments if needed. Don't wait too long to figure this out, or you'll find yourself depleting savings, just in your bank account and things like that. Unfortunately, I do see people sometimes have to dip into their retirement savings to sort of get back on their feet. And this may mean that they wind up having to work additional years. Not always, but that does happen. At this point, Ben, I don't run into a lot of new divorces with my clients, and maybe that's because most of my clients are older. Who knows? Some of them joke that they've already got their spouses trained by this point, and they don't want to train another one. But seriously, it does happen. It can be a challenge. So just make sure that you know where your money is going, and make sure that you're not taking a huge step backwards. And don't be scared to ask for help. Hey folks, Lee Perkins here. If you've listened to this podcast for any amount of time, you know how much I hate taxes, and I know you probably do too. Our politicians are completely out of control. Their spending is off the chart, and you've got to be prepared for increasing taxes in the future. So we've written a book called Diffuse: 7 Steps to Protecting Your 401k or IRA from the Ticking Tax Time Bomb. You're going to want to grab a copy of this book and learn how you can protect yourself. Then you'll have to decide if you want to take action right now, or if you'd rather wait until the IRS changes the rules of the game. Either way, the choice is yours. To get a free copy of the book, just text the word diffuse to 478-475-2050. That's DEFUSE to 478-475-2050. And we'll send you a free copy. Thanks again for listening. Now back to the show.
All right. What about an inheritance? This could be a real life changer for people getting the windfall of money, but it also can be an opportunity to make some mistakes too if you aren't careful.
Yeah, exactly. So an inheritance can really be a blessing or it can be a curse. And I think it depends on the person. If somebody has a history of making bad financial decisions, if they inherit money, it's not likely they're going to all of a sudden start making wise choices with this money. So I've seen folks wind up blowing money because they're just doing what they've always done. I've seen this on a couple of occasions. But I think the more common scenario is somebody who's in, pretty good shape, who's probably going to wind up inheriting money from a parent. And I would say that a majority of my clients with parents who are still alive are eventually going to inherit some money from them. But when I'm doing planning for these clients, I really don't add it to the mix, meaning I'm not going to factor this in when we put things into our planning software. If you get it, that's fine, but I want it to be just sort of gravy on top of whatever else you have. You may get it. You're probably going to get it, and chances are that'll happen. But, what if your parents wind up spending that money down in the last few years that they live? And this happens. Dying in your sleep is a pretty cheap way to go, but dying in a nursing home or with some type of critical illness that drags on for years can be very expensive. And this can eat into that inheritance that you think you may get. So again, if you think you're going to get an inheritance, I don't want you to sit around and wait on it. Make your finance, be in charge of your own financial destiny, and don't depend on somebody else to leave you a lot of money.
Yeah, taking controls is always the key to your finances. And one way you can do that too, Lee, is by taking advantage of your Taking Tax Time Bond book offer and really take control of some of that tax planning by learning and educating yourself.
Yeah. Now, sometimes we see people make mistakes on an inheritance from a tax planning standpoint. So you got to make sure you inherit money in the right way. So to educate yourself from a tax standpoint, we did the book Diffuse, and it's just a great way for you to help educate yourself on just the changing landscape of taxes. And so if you want to, and it's a really easy book to read. If you want to copy that book, just text the word diffuse to 478-475-2050. Give us a good contact information, mailing address, and we'll ship that book out to you.
Very good. All right, let's continue on some major life events. Next up, becoming an empty nester, Lee. I know you know how this is, but what should you be thinking about? Because I know this is a chance maybe for some extra income, maybe a chance to save, but you might also have some educational obligations to maybe pay for too.
Yeah, and I think one of the main things that happens when you become an empty nester for the first time is really you wind up with more time, and that the time that used to be spent at kids' activities, school or sporting events or whatever it was, that now becomes free time. And really free time can be a little bit of a learning curve. But what I see a lot of people doing is they wind up getting out and doing more things. And so travel becomes more of an option. And I love watching people do this. And so it's actually pretty cool to see how, some of the things that people do, not always, extravagant trips. But no matter what it is, it can be expensive. And so you've got to make sure that you factor that into your overall budget. And so hopefully the expenses that you lose with kids being gone can then go towards some of these type of activities. But if your kids are still, away at college and you're that empty nester with kids at college, we still got some financial obligations there. I've got more and more friends, Ben, who are becoming empty nesters, and everybody tells me that they love it. Certainly they miss their kids, and love it when they're those kids come home to visit, but they all tell me they're pretty glad when they leave too. Walker is in his first year of college and my daughter's a 10th grader. So we've still got a few more years before we experience this firsthand. I'm kind of looking forward to it in some ways, but in other ways, I'm really kind of dreading it. So yeah, I might have to reach out to the audience for some advice here in a few years.
Very true, but we appreciate you taking us through some things to be thinking about with becoming an empty nester. All right, last one here, Lee, obviously very somber one to have a discussion on. I'm sure not an easy part of your job, but the death of a spouse can obviously impact you greatly, and there's so many financial decisions that you feel like you have to make right away, and this can be very difficult. So how do you help your clients through this?
Yeah, this is one that is very common. I see this one all the time. I've probably had a dozen or so clients lose their spouses in the last 3, 4, 5 years. It's tough, but it's something that most of us are going to deal with at some point in the future. I could do a whole episode on this topic, actually probably a couple of episodes. I kind of divide it into two things: before somebody dies and then after somebody dies. So really the first part of this would be, actually trying to help people be proactive in planning on the death of a spouse. Not being morbid, and we're going to talk about how I'm going to move on after you're gone, not those things, but I'm talking about doing the simple things that can really make a difference. I can't stress enough the importance of life insurance. Make sure you don't leave your spouse in a financial bind when you pass away. Also, if you're the person who handles the money in your family, the financial part of your household, make sure you keep your spouse in the loop. Keep an inventory of everything, and not just the accounts. Those are the things that we think about, but keep them in the loop as far as the important contacts and people that you rely on, those kind of things. Passwords, that's a big one nowadays because everything is online and you got to have a username and password to get to a lot of things. So if something happened to you, would your spouse be able to access everything they need to? And that's a good exercise to kind of walk through every once in a while. But what about after a spouse dies? I really tell people their surviving spouse needs to spend time grieving. Don't rush this process. Is natural to grieve, and everybody does it differently. I generally am going to tell people don't make any major financial decisions, or really any major decisions, even if it's not financial, right away. Give it some time, because our mind will sometimes play tricks on us, and sometimes it tells us that we need to upend our world and do a whole lot of things different right away. I would tell you, Ben, that it's rare that you need to make a quick decision on something right after somebody dies. So make sure you seek wise counsel. I can't stress the importance of having a close friend to help you walk through a lot of this stuff. They can certainly help you sort through things during the time when your mind is probably stretched in 1,000 different directions and you can't really think straight. And of course, let your financial advisor help you prioritize the things that you need to do right away. Like I said earlier, I've sat down with clients who've lost their spouses a bunch over the last 4 or 5 years. And while I'm meeting with these people, not one person, not a single one, has asked me what their return has been over the last 6 months. That's important, but that's not a priority. They want to make sure that they're going to be okay. There's just a lot more pressing things during this kind of time. But I mean, I hate having clients go through this, but I know that this is when they need me the most, and we're going to be there for them.
That's what's most important there, that you're always there for your clients. And again, if you are maybe going through one of these situations or think that maybe one of them could be coming up in your life, or you just want to be prepared and discuss what you need to do from a planning perspective to be ready in the event any of these happen, just start with going to talkwithlee.com. There you'll get a calendar. You can find a time that works for you to get in touch with Lee over at J.L. Perkins Wealth Management. But if you want to call, again, it's 478-254-3550. And you'll find every episode online at myretirementclarity.com. So please check us out there as well. Plenty of great content to go back on. If there's something specific you're looking for, you'll probably find it in the podcast. Lee, always great to chat with you. One more time, the Ticking Tax Time Bomb book offer.
Yep. Just text the word DEFUSE, DEFUSE, to 478-475-2050. And I know we talk about this a bunch during the show, but it's that important. Taxes are a major concern for, and they should be for almost everybody. So if you want a copy of the book, text the word DEFUSE to 478-475-2050 and we'll send you a copy.
Yeah, hopefully you'll take advantage of that. It's been a great resource for many people. We've heard some great feedback on it. So it's there for you to take advantage of. All right, Lee, we'll get out of here on that note. Thanks for your insight today and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks, man. Lee Perkins here, and I want to thank you so much for tuning into the show today. If you like our podcast, we would be honored if you would share the show with others. And one great way to do that is by posting the show to your social media pages or by just telling others about it. Either way, we would really appreciate it. And of course, if you do enjoy the show, we would appreciate it if you would give us a 5-star review, and this certainly helps other people like you find our show. And if you want to learn a little more about our firm and how we help people have the best retirement they can possibly have, go check us out at www.myretirementclarity.com. There are a lot of great resources that you can access directly on the website. And of course, if you want to have a conversation with me, you can visit www.talkwithlee.com, and this will take you directly to my calendar. And there you can schedule a 15-minute phone call so I can learn a little bit more about your situation. Of course, everybody is not a great fit for our firm, but if I think we can add value and put you in a better situation, I'll let you know, and we can certainly talk about the next steps. So thanks again for tuning into the show, and we'll catch you next time.
Investment advisory services are offered by J.L. Perkins Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor and insurance agency. Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, legal, or investment advice. Always consult with a qualified tax, legal, or investment professional before taking any action.